Hello, all UPSC aspirants out there, and welcome. Today, we're doing a quick knowledge check, a rapid-fire revision quiz covering the absolute core concepts from Class 10 economics. Think of this as a great way to test your foundations, which, as you know, are so crucial for the civil services exam. Ready to jump in? Let's get started.
So, here's how we're going to do this. We've got 4 quick rounds lined up for you. We'll kick things off with development and economic sectors, then we'll dive into the basics of money and credit. After that, we'll tackle the huge topic of globalization, and we'll wrap things up with consumer rights. In each round, you'll get a key question to really test your understanding. Okay, let's start with round 1, development and economic sectors. This topic is pretty much the bedrock for understanding the entire Indian economy, so let's see how solid your grasp of these basics really is.
And here's your first question. Is per capita income the only true measure of a country's development? Really think about that for a second. Yes or no? And more importantly, why? Feel free to hit pause and gather your thoughts before we move on. So, first things first, what exactly is per capita income? Well, it's just what it sounds like, the average income. You take a country's total income and divide it by the number of people. Big institutions like the World Bank use this all the time to classify countries. It's a key metric for sure, but does it tell the whole story? Now this is where it gets really interesting. Let's look at this comparison. Based on this data, Haryana actually had a higher per capita income than Kerala. But, and this is a big but, if you look at other vital signs of development, Kerala is way ahead. Its infant mortality rate was just 12, compared to 36 in Haryana. And look at the literacy rate, 94% in Kerala. That's a huge difference.
So the big takeaway here is pretty clear. Income just isn't everything. People want more than just money, right? We want things like equal treatment, freedom, a sense of security, and respect. And let's be honest, your salary can't buy you a pollution-free city or protect you from all diseases. So true development, real development, is a mix of goals, not just a bigger paycheck.
Another really important concept from this chapter is the difference between the organized and unorganized sectors. The organized sector is pretty straightforward. It's registered with the government, you get job security, you have fixed working hours, and benefits like paid leave. The unorganized sector, on the other hand, is totally different. It's mostly outside of government control, so there's no job security, the hours are all over the place, and forget about benefits. Think about daily wage laborers. That's a classic example.
That was a great start. Now let's shift gears and move to round 2, money and credit. These two things are pretty much the backbone of our entire financial world.
Okay, here's your next question. What is the one fundamental, massive problem of the old barter system that modern money completely solves? Take a second to think back to the basics of how trade used to work. And the answer all comes down to this one key phrase, the double coincidence of wants. Now, this was absolutely essential for the barter system to work. It means that what you want to sell is exactly what the other person wants to buy, and what they have is exactly what you want. You can imagine how incredibly restrictive that is for trade.
This cartoon just nails the problem perfectly. Look at it. The shoe seller wants to trade his shoes for wheat, but the wheat farmer doesn't need shoes. He needs clothes. So what happens? Nothing. No trade. It's a total deadlock. And that was the fundamental flaw of the barter system.
So how does money come in and save the day? It's actually brilliantly simple. It acts as an intermediate, a middleman. The shoe seller just sells his shoes for money. Then he takes that money and goes and buys wheat from anyone who's selling it. And just like that, the need for that double coincidence of wants is totally gone. Transactions become smooth, easy, and efficient.
All right, 2 rounds down, 2 to go. Let's move on to round 3, the impact of globalization. This is a huge topic, and it's all about how multinational corporations have reshaped the modern economy.
So, the question for you is this. What are the main ways a multinational corporation, an MNC, actually controls production when it operates in countries all over the world? Think about how they invest and operate.
The number one tool in their toolkit is foreign investment. This is basically when an MNC spends money to buy assets, things like land, buildings, machinery, in a country that isn't its home base. This is the primary way they build their global presence.
So the crucial thing to understand is that they have a whole playbook of strategies. Sometimes they'll partner up with local companies for joint production. Other times, they just buy the local company outright. A great example is when the American MNC Cargill bought Perak Foods here in India. They can also control things by placing massive orders with smaller local producers, or even just by slapping their powerful brand name on goods that are produced locally.
It's all about strategy and control.
And here we are at our final round, consumer rights. This is a topic that's incredibly important for every single one of us, not just as citizens, but as consumers in our daily lives.
Okay, last question. Which landmark act gives Indian citizens the power to actually seek justice when they're faced with unfair trade practices or exploitation?
And the answer is the Consumer Protection Act of 1986, which is much more famously known as COPRA. This act was an absolute game-changer for the consumer rights movement in India.
Under COPRA, consumers were suddenly armed with a whole set of really important rights. You've got the right to safety, the right to be informed, the right to choose, and, maybe the most powerful of all, the right to seek redressal, the right to get things fixed when they go wrong. This law created a whole new judicial system just for consumer complaints.
And this slide shows you exactly what that looks like in the real world. Because of COPRA, we now have consumer forums or consumer courts at the district, state, and national levels. This means any regular consumer now has a formal, accessible place to go to file a complaint and get justice.
So, to wrap this all up, let's leave you with one final, bigger thought, something to really chew on for your mains preparation. We've talked about development, globalization, and consumer rights. So the big question is, how can India strike the right balance between fair globalization on one side and strong consumer rights on the other, to make sure we get development that's both sustainable and includes everyone? It's a tough question, but a really important one. And that brings us to the end of our rapid revision. I really hope this session helped you refresh these core ideas and connect a few dots. Thank you so much for joining us, and all the very best with your preparations. Keep learning and keep revising.